Alero Uduak had never fit into the neat little box people expected girls to fit into. She didn't giggle softly like the other girls in the village. She didn't care about gossiping at the stream or fighting over who had the prettiest wrapper. And she definitely didn't dream of the day she'd marry some farmer's son and settle down. Instead, she dreamed of engines. Engines that hummed with life. Engines that coughed like they had colds. Engines that growled like angry old men. No one in the entire village understood why a girl, especially a girl as muscular and intimidating as Alero, would spend her time learning how to fix cars when she should be doing feminine things. But that never bothered her. Because the moment she stepped into the small, dusty mechanic workshop that belonged to her father, her entire world felt right. That place smelled of engine oil, rubber, and memories. And there, she wasn't strange. She wasn't too much. She was exactly who she was meant to be. Her father, Baba Uduak, was a legend, at least to her. He was a towering man with a thick beard and laughter that rolled out of him like thunder. He always said he had two great loves, his daughter and his workshop, and he treated both of them with the same tenderness. While other girls learned to balance water pots on their heads, Alero learned how to balance a car battery. While they played 10-10 under mango trees, she learned how to loosen stubborn bolts without stripping them. Her muscles grew from lifting tires and pushing cars that refused to start. Her confidence grew from fixing problems grown men couldn't understand. Her father was patient. He taught her slowly, explaining each sound, each smell, each sign a car used to communicate. "Listen, Alero," he would say. "Every car talks. You just have to learn its language." And she did. It felt like magic. Hearing an engine cough twice and knowing exactly what was wrong. Feeling the temperature of a radiator and guessing the problem inside. She had a gift, her father always said. But outside the workshop walls, that gift caused trouble. Kids her age pointed at her arms, whispering that she was built like a wrestler. Some boys laughed at her walk, teasing her for being too strong to be a girl. Some girls asked her why she didn't behave normal. Even adults sometimes said things that stung. Will any man even want someone that muscular? She's wasting her childhood. She should be learning how to cook, not how to fix cars. Alero heard every word. She pretended not to care, but deep down, it hurt more than she'd ever admit. She was just a girl who wanted to be herself. But whenever a car rumbled into the workshop and her father handed her a wrench with a proud smile, the world outside didn't matter anymore. One windy afternoon, everything changed. Her father had been coughing for weeks, the deep kind of cough that never seemed to leave. Alero would pause from her work just to watch him out of the corner of her eye. He always waved her worries away. "It's nothing, my child. Just old age playing pranks." But it wasn't. The day his cough turned into a frightening fit, violent enough to shake his large body, Alero ran to his side, terrified. She helped him sit, tried to make him take water, but he only smiled weakly. She begged him to rest. He refused. He wanted to work. That evening, he finally collapsed. Alero screamed for help. The neighbors rushed in. Someone carried him into the only rickety car available. Someone else called the village nurse. But deep inside, Alero knew something was terribly wrong. At the health center, she held his hand until it grew cold. The world felt too quiet without his laughter, too empty without his voice, too heavy without his presence. Her father, her teacher, her protector, her hero was gone. The day they buried him, the entire workshop seemed to mourn with her. The tools lay untouched. Dust gathered on the workbenches. For the first time, Alero walked into the workshop and didn't hear his voice explaining something. No jokes, no stories, no thunderous laughter. Just silence. She stood in the middle of the room, touching each tool, each rusty spare part, each engine he never finished fixing. Every memory felt like a wound. She cried quietly as oil-stained cloths crumpled in her hands. She whispered softly into the empty room, "Papa, what am I supposed to do now?" No answer came. For days she barely slept. She tried to keep the shop running, but without her father's presence, customers stopped coming. People whispered that she was too young to manage it, too inexperienced, just a girl playing with tools. She pretended not to hear them, but the workshop felt like a ghost town, full of memories but empty of life. One evening, as she sat on the dusty floor with her father's old wrench in her hand, she realized something painful but true. The village had nothing left to offer her. She loved her home. She loved her father. But she could no longer stay in a place where everything reminded her of what she lost. and where people only saw her as the girl who didn't fit in. She needed a fresh start, a new beginning, a place where she could be more than the muscular mechanic girl. And so, with trembling hands and a burning heart, she made the hardest decision of her life. She would leave. But first, she had to let go of the workshop. Selling her father's shop felt like betraying him. Each time a buyer came to inspect the property, Alero's heart squeezed painfully. She kept expecting her father to walk in, to laugh, to scold her for even thinking of selling it. But he didn't walk in. She was alone now. The day the sale was finalized, she walked through the workshop one last time. She ran her hand across the faded wooden table where she'd learned how to tighten a bolt for the first time. She touched the old stool her father always sat on while telling her stories about car engines. She looked around at the cracked walls, remembering the thousands of moments she shared with him. Then she whispered, "Papa, I'm not abandoning your dreams. I'm carrying them with me." She stepped outside, closed the door softly, and didn't look back. A few days later, with a small bag of clothes, her father's favorite wrench, and the little money she got from the shop sale, Alero boarded a bus heading for the city. The bus was crowded and noisy. Babies cried. Hawkers shouted. The smell of roasted corn floated through the window whenever they stopped. Alero hugged her bag tightly, trying to steady her breathing. She was leaving everything she knew. She was stepping into a world she didn't understand. She was terrified. But beneath the fear, something else grew. Hope. She pictured tall buildings, busy roads, modern cars, a busy mechanic yard with new tools and new opportunities. A life where no one mocked her strength. A life where she could be more than the village oddity. A life where her father's lessons wouldn't go to waste. The sun was setting when the bus finally arrived in the city. Lights sparkled everywhere. Cars zoomed past like they were in a race. People moved like they were late for something. Giant billboards hung over busy streets. The city seemed alive. Angry, restless, energetic, powerful. Alero stepped down, breathing in the air filled with exhaust fumes and excitement. Her heart pounded with a mix of fear and wonder. This was her new home. She tightened the straps of her bag, lifted her chin, and whispered to herself, "You can do this, Alero. You're strong." And for the first time in a long while, she believed it. The city was nothing like the village. It towered, roared, buzzed, breathed, like a giant machine made of people, vehicles, noise, and endless movement. As Alero stood at the bus park with her backpack slung over one shoulder, she felt the magnitude of her decision settle into her chest. Cars rushed past as if racing time itself. Tall buildings stretched toward the sky, their glass windows sparkling under the morning sun. Street vendors shouted across sidewalks, trying to catch the attention of hurried pedestrians. Buses honked impatiently, weaving in and out of traffic like restless animals. The air carried the mixed sense of exhaust fumes, roasted corn, and freshly baked bread. It was overwhelming. It was intimidating. It was beautiful. "Welcome to your new life," Alero whispered under her breath. She spent her first night in a small guest house. The room was narrow, with pale blue walls that had faded from years of neglect. The ceiling fan made a soft, rhythmic clicking sound that echoed in the quiet. But for Alero, who had just left behind everything familiar, even this tiny room felt like a step forward. The next morning, she woke before dawn with determination burning inside her. She washed her face, braided her hair back, put on her cleanest shirt, and stepped out to face the city. She needed a place to live. She needed a job. She needed to build a future from nothing. Finding a place to stay turned out to be harder than she imagined. Rent was high, and many landlords were suspicious of a young woman arriving alone in the city. But after walking for hours, a kind elderly woman showed her a small room in a shared compound. The room contained nothing but a thin mattress on the cement floor and a tiny window overlooking a mango tree. It wasn't much, but it was hers. Alero paid for 1 month upfront with the little money she had saved from selling her father's workshop. When the landlady handed her the key, Alero closed her eyes and let the moment sink in. She was truly starting over. The next day, Alero dressed in simple jeans and a gray t-shirt, tied her boots, and walked out to look for work. She carried her father's wrench in her bag. Not because she expected to use it, but because it reminded her of home, of comfort, of him. She walked from workshop to workshop, introducing herself politely, offering her skills, asking for a chance. But the reactions were painfully similar everywhere she went. Some shop owners didn't believe she was a mechanic. Some laughed at the idea of a girl, especially one with her build, working with engines. Others simply waved her away without listening. After hours of walking, her feet were sore, and sweat clung to her clothes. She found a spot under a large tree, sat down, and drank from her water bottle. "Maybe this won't be as easy as I thought," she murmured. But she didn't give up. Alero wiped her face, stood once more, and continued down the road. That was when she saw it. A wide, modern building with bold red letters on a shiny metal sign. Autoplus Motor Garage, Luxury Vehicle Specialists. Her heart skipped a beat. Outside, sleek cars gleamed in the sunlight. Mercedes, BMWs, Audis, and even a few high-end SUVs. The mechanics wore matching navy blue overalls. The place looked clean, organized, and professional. This was where she wanted to work, where she needed to work. She took a deep breath, smoothed the sweat from her forehead, and walked through the open gate. Instantly, she felt eyes on her. A young woman in a mechanic shop was unusual. A young woman with muscles and confidence was even more unusual. Some of the mechanics exchanged surprised glances. A few paused their work to stare openly. But Alero kept her chin up as she approached the man who looked like the supervisor. A tall, broad-shouldered man holding a clipboard and reviewing paperwork. "Good afternoon," she said politely. "My name is Alero. I'm looking for a job as a mechanic." The supervisor lifted his eyes, scanning her from head to toe. His expression was neutral but curious. "A mechanic?" he asked, as though he needed to be sure he heard correctly. "Yes," she said. "I trained under my father for years. I'm experienced." The other mechanics were listening now. A few smirked. Someone chuckled softly. Alero ignored it. The supervisor closed his folder. "What can you work on?" "Anything you bring," she said with quiet confidence. That got their attention. The smirks turned into raised eyebrows. "Well," the supervisor said slowly, "there's a Lexus over there that refuses to start. We've tried everything. If you can fix it—" He paused, then added, "I'll consider giving you a position." Alero didn't wait for further instructions. She walked straight to the car. The Lexus was beautiful, deep blue with a polished chrome trim. But the engine was stubbornly silent. Alero opened the hood and inhaled deeply. Cars had a language. She had spent her entire life learning to understand it. She began examining the engine with practiced ease. She checked every possible fault: battery, plugs, wiring, fuel flow. Her eyes caught something near the battery terminals: corrosion and loose connections. She smiled slightly. She cleaned the terminals with quick, precise motions, tightened them firmly, checked the wiring again, and then turned the key in the ignition. The engine came alive instantly. A smooth, powerful hum. The entire garage went silent. A few tools dropped. A few jaws dropped. The supervisor blinked as if he wasn't sure he had seen correctly. Alero stepped back, wiped her hands on her jeans, and said simply, "It wasn't complicated. Just loose terminals." The supervisor stared at her for a long moment before slowly nodding. "What's your name again?" "Alero Uduek." "Well, Alero," he said, a smile finally forming. "Welcome to Autoplus. You start tomorrow." Alero didn't trust her voice. She simply nodded, feeling her heart swell with relief and pride. She had finally found her chance. The next morning, Alero arrived earlier than everyone else. She swept the workshop, arranged tools, and prepared for the day's work. When the others arrived, she was already elbow-deep in her first repair. Day by day, she proved herself. She lifted gearboxes that 3 men struggled to move. She diagnosed engine problems faster than anyone expected. She worked tirelessly, sweat dripping down her face, determination shining in her eyes. The teasing stopped. The snickering faded. People began to watch her with a kind of growing respect. Soon, customers started asking for her specifically. "That girl knows what she's doing. She fixed my car faster than anyone else here. She's impressive, strong and talented." Alero tried not to smile when she heard such comments, but she couldn't help it. Felt good. Felt earned. The city had not been easy to adjust to, but she was finding her place. Slowly, steadily, proudly. Every night, she returned to her small room and lay on her mattress, exhausted yet fulfilled. She would hold her father's old wrench and think of everything he taught her. She imagined him watching her from somewhere above, cheering proudly. Sometimes, the loneliness of the city crept into her heart. She missed her father's voice. She missed the safety of familiarity. She missed having someone who understood her without judgment. But each morning, the sound of engines greeting her at Autoplus reminded her of why she had left the village. She was building something, a new life, a new dream, a new version of herself. On a bright morning, Alero was walking to work with her bags slung across her back. The city was in its usual chaotic rhythm. Cars honking, vendors shouting, children rushing to school. But ahead, something unusual caught her eye. A sleek Rolls-Royce Phantom was parked awkwardly by the roadside, its hood open, smoke gently rising from it. People were slowing down to stare. The car looked luxurious, elegant, and painfully out of place on that rough road. And standing beside it, looking helpless, was a man dressed in a sharp black suit. Alero's step slowed. She didn't know it yet, but helping this stranger would change the entire course of her life. Forever. The morning sun had just begun its slow climb across the skyline when Alero spotted the car, sleek, majestic, and unmistakably expensive. A Rolls-Royce Phantom, deep obsidian black with chrome so polished it reflected passing cars like mirrors. It sat oddly on the roadside, its hood raised like a wounded creature exposing its internal organs. Steam drifted upward in faint white wisps. Traffic slowed around it, drivers craning their necks to see what was happening. Alero's steps unconsciously slowed. This wasn't a car people simply owned. This was a car people dreamed of. A car with a price tag high enough to buy an entire block of houses. It looked so out of place on the cracked, uneven road that the scene felt surreal, like an elegant swan stranded in a muddy puddle. But what truly caught her attention wasn't the car. It was the man standing beside it. He stood tall, dressed in a perfectly tailored black suit that hugged his frame with effortless sophistication. He had the clean, sharp look of someone who stepped out of a fashion magazine, broad shoulders, well-kept hair, neatly groomed beard. He checked his wristwatch, then his phone, then the engine, each time with increasing frustration. He wasn't the type of man who typically handled a broken car. That much was obvious. Alero hesitated for only a second before her instinct kicked in, the same instinct her father had taught her. When you see a car struggling, you help. She crossed the road quickly, her boots clicking lightly against the pavement, and stopped a respectful distance away. "Good morning," she said. The man looked up, startled. His eyes, sharp, dark, and slightly tired, landed on her with curiosity. "Morning," he replied. His voice was smooth but tense. "Do you need help?" Alero asked, nodding toward the open hood. He seemed confused by her question, maybe even amused. "Help? With this?" "Yes," she said calmly. "I'm a mechanic." That made him blink. His eyes traveled from her face to her muscular arms, then down to the small toolkit she always carried in her backpack. He wasn't mocking her. He wasn't skeptical. He simply seemed stunned that someone like her would appear in a moment like this. "You're a mechanic?" he repeated. "Yes," she answered. "A good one." Something softened in his expression. Trust or hope? She couldn't tell. "Well, I'm not sure what happened. It just shut down." He gestured toward the engine helplessly. "I have a meeting in 20 minutes, and the tow service hasn't responded." Alero stepped forward without hesitation. "I can take a look." He nodded and stepped aside. Alero approached the Rolls-Royce with gentle hands. Cars, especially luxury ones, needed to be treated with respect. She took a moment to observe the engine. The layout, the slight vibration, the faint smell of overheated metal. She touched a few components lightly, testing for temperature and response. The man watched her closely, arms folded as if trying to understand what magic she was performing. "Do you work nearby?" he asked. "Yes," Alero said, her eyes still focused on the engine. "At Autoplus garage." "And you're sure you know how to handle this type of car?" Alero lifted her head and gave him a small smile, the confident kind. Rolls-Royce engines still speak the same language as other engines. You just have to listen carefully. He didn't know what to say to that. Within moments, she spotted the issue, a clogged fuel line. A minor problem, but enough to shut down a sensitive, finely tuned engine like this one. Alero reached into her backpack, pulled out a few tools, and got to work swiftly. The man stepped closer, careful not to get in her way. "You seem very skilled," he said softly. She shrugged. "I grew up fixing cars. My father taught me." "And how long have you been in the city?" "Not long," she replied. She didn't say more, and he didn't ask further. After a few minutes, she tightened the final component, wiped her hands on a cloth she always kept, and nodded. It should start now. The man looked at her, then at the car. He walked to the driver's seat hesitantly, as though not fully believing it could be fixed so quickly. He inserted the key and pressed the start button. The engine purred to life instantly. Smooth, rich, perfect. He froze. Alero smiled. He stepped out of the car, astonished. This is unbelievable. You fixed it in less than 10 minutes. It wasn't complicated, she explained. Just a small blockage. But you diagnosed it so quickly. She shrugged again. It's what I do. For a moment, he simply stared at her with admiration, with surprise, with something else she couldn't name. I never caught your name, he said. Alero. Alero? He repeated slowly, as if tasting the name. I'm Tiga Lawson. She felt a faint recognition when he said it, like she'd seen his name somewhere before, but she couldn't place it. It's nice to meet you, she said. You too, he said, then added softly. You saved me today. I just fixed a car. No, he said gently. You saved me. She didn't know how to respond to that. With the car fixed, Alero prepared to leave, but Tiga stepped forward slightly. Wait, he said. Do you have a moment? She paused. Is something wrong with the car? No, he said quickly. Nothing's wrong. He gestured awkwardly, surprising even himself. I wanted to thank you properly. Alero lifted an eyebrow. You already thanked me. He chuckled softly. It was the first time she saw his face relax. Well, maybe I want to do more than just say it. Can I drop you off at your workplace? Alero shook her head immediately. I'm fine walking. It's not far. Please, he insisted gently. It would make me feel better. Alero hesitated. The idea of sitting inside such a luxurious car felt strange, like stepping into a world she didn't belong to. But his expression was sincere, and she didn't sense arrogance or pity. She nodded once. Okay. The ride was quiet at first. The interior of the Rolls-Royce was breathtaking. Soft leather seats, glowing ambient lights, the gentle hum of the engine. Alero sat stiffly at first, afraid to touch anything. You don't have to be so tense, Tiga said with a smile. It's just a car. An extremely expensive car, Alero corrected. True, he said, laughing softly. But still just a car. She relaxed a little, just enough to breathe normally. So, how long have you been a mechanic? He asked. My whole life, she said. My father owned a workshop. I learned everything from him. After he passed, I decided to come to the city. I'm sorry about your father, Tiga said sincerely. Thank you, she replied quietly. And how are you liking the city so far? It's loud, she said honestly, and busy, and confusing. But I like it. He nodded. It can be intense, but it's full of opportunity too. I hope so, she whispered without meaning to. He glanced at her, something soft in his eyes. I don't think you'll have trouble finding opportunities. You're impressive. Alero looked at him sharply. Impressive? Yes, he said without hesitation. Very. Her cheeks warmed unexpectedly. She wasn't used to compliments, at least not one said gently, sincerely, without mockery. Before she could respond, they arrived at Autoplus. She reached for the door handle, but Tiga's voice stopped her. Alero? She turned. Would you mind if I got your number? He asked. Her eyes widened a little. My number? For what? He smiled slightly. In case my car breaks down again. Alero stared at him, unconvinced. Your car won't break down again because of today's issue. Maybe another issue, he said casually. Rolls-Royce engines don't fail easily, she countered. He chuckled. Then maybe, I just want to talk to the woman who saved me this morning. Her heart skipped. She didn't have many people in her life. She didn't often meet people who treated her without judgment. She definitely didn't meet men like him. But something about Tiga Lawson felt genuine. So she nodded, recited her number, and stepped out of the car. Before she entered the workshop, she glanced back. Tiga was still watching her. Their eyes met for a moment, a brief, electric moment, and then he drove away. Alero didn't know what this meant. She didn't know where this encounter would lead. She didn't know how deeply her life had already begun to change. But deep in her chest, something fluttered, a quiet, unfamiliar excitement, a spark she never saw coming. Tiga called the very next day. Alero had just finished tightening a bolt on a customer's SUV when her phone buzzed inside her pocket. She wiped her hands on a cloth and pulled the phone out, expecting it to be the parts supplier or her landlady. But it wasn't. Unknown number calling. She hesitated, swallowed, then answered. "Hello, Alero?" The voice was unmistakable, deep, smooth, gentle in a surprisingly warm way. She blinked. "Tiga?" He laughed softly. "You remembered my voice." "Well, you did call yesterday," she replied, trying to sound calm. "Are you busy right now?" he asked. Alero glanced around. The garage was crowded as usual. Workers moving around. Engines hoisted. Tools clattering. Heat rising from the pavement. She was always busy, but something about his tone made her pause. "I can speak," she said. "Good, because my car is making a sound." Alero rolled her eyes before she could stop herself. "What kind of sound?" "Well," Tiga said, hesitation dripping from his words. "A sound. What does that mean?" "A sound," he repeated helplessly. Alero couldn't help laughing. "Cars don't just make a sound. What exactly does it sound like?" "Like something that concerns me." "Tiga," she said with a sigh. "You can't just. Can I bring it over?" He cut in quickly. She opened her mouth to tell him that luxury cars rarely developed problems a day after service, and that his engine had been in perfect shape. But she could already imagine his expression. Hopeful, earnest, pretending the car needed help just to see her. And something inside her softened. "Yes," she said quietly. "You can bring it." He didn't hide his relief. "Great. I'll be there soon." She hung up, staring at the phone longer than necessary. She tried to tell herself that this was nothing. He was just another customer. But deep down, she knew that wasn't true. 20 minutes later, the unmistakable Rolls-Royce Phantom rolled into Autoplus. Before it even stopped fully, heads turned. Workers paused mid-task. Customers whispered. A car like that didn't enter their workshop often. A man like Tiga Lawson entered even less. The moment he stepped out, suit crisp, shoes polished, confidence effortless. Noise rippled through the garage. Even the supervisor's eyes widened. Alero kept working on the SUV longer than necessary, pretending not to notice the commotion. She heard the supervisor approaching. "Alero," he whispered urgently. "That man is calling you." Her heart thudded. She wiped her hands and finally turned. Tiga was leaning casually against his car, smiling softly like they shared a secret. The sight sent warmth through her chest. "You came," she said. "Of course I did," he replied, as if it was obvious. She walked closer, noticing the soft cologne he wore. Clean, subtle, expensive. It made her unexpectedly self-conscious about smelling like engine oil. "So," she said, tapping the hood. "Let's hear this mysterious problem." Tiga cleared his throat. "Right, yes, the problem." He got into the car, turned the key, and nothing strange happened. The engine purred smoothly. Alero folded her arms. "Tiga." He shut the car off quickly. "Maybe it only does it sometimes?" "Tiga," she repeated. He sighed. "Okay, fine. Maybe there isn't a problem." She shook her head, fighting a smile. "You made that whole thing up." He put his hands in his pockets, shrugging. "I wanted to see you again." Alero blinked. No one had ever said something like that to her, so boldly, so simply. She felt the heat rise to her cheeks and quickly looked away, pretending to inspect the car. "You didn't have to pretend," she muttered. "Maybe," he said softly, "but I needed an excuse." She told herself to stay professional. She told herself to focus on the car. She told herself not to get distracted. But the truth was simple. She liked talking to him, and it scared her just a little. When it was obvious Tiga's car had no problem, he didn't leave. Instead, he leaned against a nearby workbench and watched her continue with her tasks. "You really love working with cars," he said. "Yes," she replied. "What do you love about it?" Alero tightened a bolt before answering. "Cars make sense. People don't." He raised an eyebrow. "How so?" "With cars," she said thoughtfully. "If something is wrong, there's always a reason. A broken line, a clogged pipe, loose bolts, a damaged wire. When you fix it, it works again." "And people?" he asked. "People judge what they don't understand. They break things for no reason. They hurt others without thinking. Cars never do that." Tiga watched her quietly. "That sounds like experience talking," he said. Alero didn't respond immediately. She focused on her work, but her voice softened. People always said I wasn't feminine enough. Too strong. Too muscular. Too strange. She shrugged. Cars didn't care. She expected him to laugh or ask questions. Instead, he said, I think strength looks beautiful on you. Her hands froze on the tool. She looked up at him slowly. He wasn't joking. His eyes held no mockery, no pity, no curiosity, only sincerity. I'm not beautiful, she said quietly. Who told you that? He asked. She didn't answer. He took a step closer. Alero, there is power in being who you are. A strength some people will never understand. That doesn't make you less. It makes you more. She swallowed hard, trying to steady her breathing. No one had ever spoken to her like that. From that day, Tiga became a regular presence. He stopped by often, always claiming his car was acting strange. Even though Alero knew every sound that engine made and would have detected even the smallest misbehavior, he brought snacks for the garage workers, water bottles during hot afternoons, even new tool sets for the shop. Though the supervisor always winked at Alero, knowing exactly who the real recipient was. Whenever he arrived, Alero's chest tightened with a mix of excitement and nerves she pretended not to feel. They talked. A lot. Not just about cars. About life. About dreams. About family. She learned he was a billionaire, but strangely it didn't intimidate her. She learned he owned multiple companies, but he spoke about them humbly. She learned he had grown up in a strict, wealthy family that valued status above happiness. And he learned things about her she rarely shared. How her father taught her everything. How her mother died young. How the village laughed at her muscles. How she felt worthless after her father's death. How she came to the city to start over. He listened, really listened. And every time he called her Alero, it felt like her name carried a new meaning. Of course, her co-workers noticed. They whispered. They chuckled. They nudged each other when Tiga approached her. One even joked, maybe you're fixing his heart, not his car. Alero ignored them, though her cheeks warmed uncontrollably. When the supervisor teased her gently one day, she simply said, he's a customer. The supervisor smirked. Yes. A customer who doesn't want his car fixed. She threw a rag at him to stop the conversation. One afternoon, Tiga said, I have a request. Alero looked up. What is it? Would you come to my home to check my other cars? She blinked. Your home. He nodded. I want them serviced. And I trust you more than anyone. Alero hesitated. Stepping into his world felt dangerous, not physically but emotionally. She wasn't sure she belonged there. But he looked at her with that gentle, hopeful expression that made her chest warm. So she agreed. And that was how she found herself standing at the entrance of a mansion so large it looked like a luxury magazine cover. Polished marble steps, pillars that reached the sky, glass windows that sparkled like diamonds. She took a shaky breath. Tiga, she whispered. I don't think I should be here. He smiled softly. You're exactly where you should be. Her heart thudded painfully. Inside the massive garage of his estate were cars she had only seen online. Lamborghinis, Ferraris, Range Rovers, vintage classics that looked untouched by time. Alero felt her breath catch. She walked slowly, reverently. This is incredible, she whispered. Tiga watched her with that familiar, quiet admiration. I wanted you to see this, because you deserve to work on cars like these. Not the battered old ones in the shop. Alero laughed, overwhelmed. Cars are cars, Tiga. But this is like a dream. You should have your own workshop someday, he said. A big one, with state-of-the-art tools, with your name on the building. She stared at him, speechless. No one had ever spoken to her dreams like they were possible, like they were real. I believe in you, Alero, he said softly. I really do. That night, when she walked home, she felt something blooming inside her. Fragile but undeniable. Not love, not yet, but something warm, something dangerous, something beautiful. Connection, a bond, something that made her feel seen in a way she never knew she needed. She didn't know that someone else was already suspicious. Someone watching Tiga closely. Someone who would not allow this growing closeness to continue unnoticed. Not his staff. Not his business partners. Not a stranger. But the woman who shared his life. His girlfriend. And she was already preparing for war. For almost 2 weeks, Alero and Tiga slipped into a routine neither of them acknowledged aloud. He visited Autoplus more often than was logical. She pretended to believe his excuses. They talked about everything except the growing warmth between them. Alero was careful. Tiga was patient. Their bond tightened softly, like threads weaving themselves into a quiet connection. But that delicate balance was about to shatter. Because someone was watching. It began on a Wednesday. The sun was unbearably hot, pressing down on the garage like a heavy blanket. Alero was bent over an engine, tightening a stubborn bolt, when she sensed movement behind her. Heavy footsteps, perfume scent, floral, expensive, bold, drifting dangerously close. She lifted her head and found a woman standing in front of her. She was stunning, tall, slender, intimidatingly beautiful. Her dress was designer, form-fitting, flawless. Her makeup looked like it belonged on the cover of a fashion magazine. Her nails sparkled with tiny crystals, and her expression, sharp, cold, disapproving. "Are you Alero?" the woman asked. Her tone made Alero straighten instinctively. "Yes. Can I help you?" The woman smiled, but not kindly. It was the type of smile people gave before delivering a blow. "I'm Vanessa," she said. The name hit Alero's chest like a dropped wrench. Vanessa, the girlfriend. Alero swallowed, suddenly aware of how dusty her clothes were, how her hands looked compared to those perfect nails. She tugged her glove off and wiped her forehead, trying to stay composed. "What can I do for you?" Alero asked. "Oh, I already know what you can do," Vanessa said lightly. "You fix cars. Isn't that right?" Alero nodded cautiously. Vanessa stepped closer, too close, and looked her over slowly, from her boots to her muscular shoulders. "You're different," she said, as if analyzing a foreign creature. "Not what I expected." Alero didn't respond. She wasn't sure what Vanessa wanted her to say. Then the woman laughed softly. "Don't look so tense. I'm not here to fight. I just wanted to finally meet the mechanic my boyfriend keeps talking about." Alero froze. "He talks about me?" "All the time," Vanessa said with false sweetness. "He says you're talented, efficient, strong." She put extra emphasis on the word strong, letting her gaze linger on Alero's arms. "I just had to see you for myself." Alero felt uncomfortable, as though she were being assessed for danger. "I'm just doing my job," she said quietly. "Yes," Vanessa replied. "Just your job. Good." She flipped her silky hair and added, "I hope you'll continue to remember that." Her words sounded like a warning wrapped in a smile. Vanessa stepped back, still staring. "Tell Tiga I said hello. I'm sure he'll be stopping by again today. He always does." Then she turned and walked away, leaving behind a trail of expensive perfume and tension thick enough to choke on. Alero remained frozen for several seconds, heart beating too fast. She didn't understand what she had done wrong, or why that encounter made her stomach twist tightly. But one thing was clear. Vanessa was not just observant. She was territorial. And she wasn't going to ignore the strange new presence in her boyfriend's life. As if summoned by everything Vanessa implied, Tiga arrived less than an hour later. The workers nudged each other knowingly. Some even whispered, "Ah, she came again. Look at him. This billionaire only wants Alero. She's blessed. That man is fine." Alero didn't hear them. She was still unsettled by Vanessa's visit. "Alero," Tiga called, climbing out of his car. Usually, she would feel that small spark light up inside her. But this time it flickered and dimmed. She took a slow breath. "Hello, Tiga." He stopped mid-step, immediately noticing something was off. "What's wrong?" Before she could answer, the supervisor called her from inside the office. "Alero, I need you for a second." She grabbed the chance to escape and walked away quickly, leaving Tiga standing beside his car, confused. He waited, and waited, and waited. When she finally returned almost 20 minutes later, she didn't meet his gaze. "Alero," he said softly, "talk to me." She hesitated. "Your girlfriend came to see me," she said finally. The words hit him like a cold bucket of water. Tiga's face tightened. "She came here?" "Yes." "Why?" Alero shrugged stiffly. "She said she just wanted to meet the mechanic you talk about." Tiga cursed under his breath, running a hand through his hair. "I didn't know she would." "Alero, I'm sorry." "For what?" she asked softly. "For putting you in this position." Alero stared at the ground. "I'm not trying to interfere in anything. I'm just doing my job." "Alero," his voice softened. "You're not interfering." But she stepped back slightly. "Tiga, you have a girlfriend. A beautiful girlfriend. You're from different worlds. I don't want to cause trouble. You're not causing trouble, he insisted. Vanessa and I, we're complicated. Alero felt her chest tighten painfully. Complicated doesn't change the fact that she's your partner. Tiga opened his mouth, but no words came out. Alero continued, voice quiet but firm. Maybe it's best if you come only when your car really needs something. He felt the sting of those words physically. Alero, he whispered. She turned away before he could say more. It was the first time she walked away from him. And the moment she did, Tiga realized something important. He didn't want to lose her. He couldn't. That evening, Vanessa waited for Tiga at his mansion, sitting on a velvet couch with a glass of wine. She looked picture-perfect, hair flawless, dress expensive, expression calm. But inside, she was boiling. When Tiga walked in, she stood. So, she began, her voice icy. I met your little mechanic friend today. Tiga dropped his briefcase. Vanessa, why would you go there? Why? She repeated, incredulous. Because you talk about her constantly. Because you spend time with her. Because you look at her in ways you never look at me. Tiga sighed. You're exaggerating. Am I? She stepped closer, eyes blazing. She's not even your type. Vanessa. She's muscular, unpolished, rough around the edges. She works with tools, for God's sake. Vanessa scoffed. She's the complete opposite of the type of woman a billionaire should be around. Something snapped inside Tiga. Don't talk about her like that. Vanessa froze, shocked. Tiga continued, voice tight but controlled. Alero is talented, hardworking, honest, and yes, comfortable in her own skin. I respect her more than you can imagine. The room grew silent. Vanessa's eyes narrowed. You're attracted to her. Tiga flinched but didn't deny it quickly enough. Vanessa let out a bitter laugh. Wow. Just wow. He tried to reach for her, but she stepped back. Don't touch me. Vanessa, listen. No. She cut in sharply. You've made your choice. Just remember I don't lose fights. Especially not to women like her. Then she walked out, heels clicking sharply on the marble floor. The doors closed behind her with a chilling finality. Tiga stood alone, rubbing his forehead. His life had just become more complicated than he planned. Alero barely slept. She replayed her conversation with Vanessa. She replayed her conversation with Tiga. She replayed her own heartbeats. Felt wrong. Felt dangerous. Felt unavoidable. What was she to him? What was she doing? And why did it hurt to push him away? By dawn, she sat on her mattress, staring at the wrench her father gave her. Papa, she whispered. What am I supposed to do? No answer came. Only memories. The next day, Alero arrived early to work and tried to bury herself in tasks. But every sound of a luxury engine made her spin around too fast. Every time her phone buzzed, her stomach flipped. Every time a customer asked for her, she forced a smile. She was trying desperately to forget about Tiga. But some people are not easy to forget. And she could already sense that he wasn't the type to give up quietly. Because for the first time in his life, Tiga Lawson was falling. And he was falling fast. For the mechanic girl with strong arms and a stronger heart. And Vanessa? She hadn't even begun to fight. Alero thought ignoring Tiga would make things easier. She was wrong. Because the more she tried to forget the warmth in his eyes, the gentleness in his voice, the way he made her feel seen, the harder he pressed against the edges of her mind. And he wasn't giving up. She arrived at Auto Plus early, hoping to bury herself in work. The sky was only beginning to lighten, streaks of orange blending into the fading night. Alero stretched, rolled her shoulders, and tried to breathe away the weight on her chest. But every thought came back to him. Tiga, standing in her workshop, leaning on a workbench like he belonged there. Tiga, telling her strength looked beautiful. Tiga, looking wounded when she asked him to come only when necessary. Tiga, watching her walk away like he wasn't ready to let her go. She groaned and rubbed her face aggressively with both hands. Her supervisor approached with a smirk. Hard night. She glared at him. No. He hummed. Not thinking about anyone, I hope? She ignored him and headed toward the engine she'd been working on yesterday. But before she could reach it, a familiar hum filled the street. Her heart dropped. Her stomach clenched. She closed her eyes briefly. No, not now. The deep, luxurious purr of the Rolls-Royce Phantom cut through the noise of the morning like silk slicing through air. The car pulled in smoothly. Tiga stepped out. He looked different today. Subdued, tired, dressed in a simple black t-shirt and fitted pants instead of his usual polished suits. His hair was slightly tousled, as though he hadn't slept well. He saw her immediately. Alero froze, wrench in hand. They stared at each other across the garage. Two people caught in something neither could pretend away anymore. Tiga walked toward her slowly, carefully, like approaching something fragile. "Alero," he said softly. She swallowed. "You shouldn't be here. I needed to see you." "For what?" she asked, though her voice wasn't as steady as she wished. "For honesty," he said. "For clarity. For you." Her heart stumbled. Around them, the garage workers pretended not to stare. Even customers sensed the tension and quieted. "Tiga," she whispered. "You shouldn't." "I broke up with Vanessa," he said. Alero froze. "What?" she breathed. He exhaled like releasing a heavy truth. "Last night, after she confronted me, after I confronted myself." Alero felt the world tilt slightly. "She was right," he continued. "I wasn't fully committed. I was trying to force something that no longer worked." Alero shook her head quickly. "You didn't break up because of me. I broke up because we were pretending," he said gently. "I did it because it was time." Alero's breath felt thin. "But it looks bad, Tiga. She already thinks something is going on." "Because something is," he said quietly. Alero's pulse jumped painfully. "Tiga, I care about you," he said simply. "And I don't want to hide that anymore." Her tool slipped from her hand and clattered onto the concrete, echoing louder than it should have. Alero backed up a step, overwhelmed. "Tiga, I can't be the reason your relationship ended. People will blame me. She will blame me. This isn't about blame. It will be for her," Alero argued. He moved closer. "Alero, listen to me." "No," she whispered, stepping back again. "You don't understand. I'm not like the women in your world. I don't belong in your circles. People will laugh. They always laugh." "Let them," he said. She shook her head. "You say that now, but soon you'll see how different we are." "I already do," he said with stunning calm. "And I still choose you." The words hit her like a soft blow. Someone chooses you. Someone sees you. Someone wants you. Felt unreal. "Tiga," she breathed. "You're making this harder." "I'm trying to make it real." Her eyes stung unexpectedly. She blinked fast, but one tear escaped. She wiped it away furiously. "I'm not soft," she snapped at herself more than at him. "I don't cry." "Yes, you do," he whispered. "When it matters." Her knees felt weak. She hated how much those words affected her. How deeply he saw her. Why did he have to be like this? Why did he have to care? She steadied her breathing. "You need to focus on your life, Tiga, and I need to focus on mine." "But I want you in mine," he said. His voice cracked, just a little, but enough to break something in her. She closed her eyes tightly. "I don't know how to be part of your world," she admitted. "I don't know how to be what someone like you wants." "I don't want something," he said. "I want you." "Tiga." "Alero, look at me." Reluctantly, she did. He stepped even closer, close enough that she could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. "You deserve to be loved," he whispered. "For who you are, not for who people want you to be." The breath left her chest. Then a sound. A loud, sharp noise. The screech of expensive tires rolling into the garage. Everyone turned. Alero's heart stopped. Vanessa's car. She climbed out. Flawless dress, flawless makeup, flawless fury. Her eyes locked on Tiga and Alero standing too close. Too familiar. Too intertwined. A dangerous calm fell over Vanessa's face. "Well," she said, voice cold and cutting. "Isn't this sweet?" Alero stepped back instantly, heart pounding. Tiga's jaw clenched. "Vanessa," he said carefully. She held up a single hand. "Don't. Just don't." She walked closer, each step sharp as glass. "This is why you couldn't commit. This is why you pulled away. This is why you walked out on me last night." "Vanessa," Tiga tried again. "We were already falling apart." "Don't lie," she spat. "We were fine until her." Alero winced. "I didn't do anything," she said. "Oh, I know," Vanessa mocked. "You just fixed a few cars, fluttered your eyelashes. If you even have any. And suddenly my boyfriend is confessing his soul to a mechanic." Alero's face flushed with shame and anger. Tiga stepped between them. Enough. Oh, it's not enough, Vanessa said, voice trembling with rage. You're throwing away a 4-year relationship for someone who doesn't belong in your life. Tiga. Look at her. Alero's heart sank. Vanessa's voice dropped to a cruel whisper. She's not your equal. Something inside Alero buckled, but she refused to cry. Tiga's voice changed. Sharp, protective, almost dangerous. Don't insult her. Vanessa laughed bitterly. Oh please, do you even hear yourself? She doesn't fit your lifestyle, your status, your world. She fits me, Tiga said. And that's enough. Silence fell. Alero felt her chest twist painfully. Part of her wanted to run. Another part wanted to stay and fight. A third part wanted to disappear entirely. Vanessa shook her head slowly. This isn't over, she warned. Not by a long shot. She turned sharply, heels clicking like gunshots against the pavement, and drove away without another word. The garage breathed again, but Alero couldn't. She stepped back, shaking slightly. Tiga, I can't do this. I don't want to ruin anyone's life. You're not ruining anything, Tiga said. You don't know that. He grabbed her hand, gently, like he was afraid she'd break. Alero, he said softly. I made my choice long before she ever walked into this garage. Her voice broke. Why me? Because you're real, he whispered. Because you're strong. Because you're the only person who talks to me without pretending I'm someone important. She shut her eyes. Because, he finished. You're the only one who makes me feel like I can be myself. Another tear escaped down her cheek. But she didn't wipe it this time. For a moment, they stood there. Two souls from different worlds, bound by something neither planned. Then Alero stepped back and pulled her hand away. Not because she didn't want him, but because she wanted him too much. I need time, she whispered. Tiga nodded slowly. I'll give you that, but I'm not going anywhere. Then he turned, walked to his car, and drove off. Alero stood frozen long after he left. Her heart had made its choice, but her mind wasn't ready. Not yet. This was no longer just friendship. No longer curiosity. No longer mere admiration. This was something deeper, dangerous, life-changing, and she had no idea how to protect herself from it. Vanessa sat in her sleek, spotless living room, staring at a glass of wine she hadn't touched. Her nails, perfectly coated in champagne-colored polish, tapped against the glass rhythmically. Tick, tick, tick. Her jaw tightened. She replayed the scene from the garage over and over again. Tiga standing between her and that mechanic as though defending a queen. His voice sharp, protective. His eyes filled with something she recognized instantly. Admiration, warmth, affection. Not toward her, toward Alero. The humiliation crawled under her skin like fire. She wasn't used to losing. She wasn't used to being dismissed. She wasn't used to being replaced, especially not by someone who didn't fit into the polished world she and Tiga had built. A mechanic? A woman who worked with dirty engines and greasy tools? A woman who didn't know how to dress properly for a dinner, let alone a gala? No, she would not accept this. Vanessa stood abruptly, grabbed her bag, and marched out with determination blazing through her veins. If Tiga wanted to throw away 4 years, that was his choice. But she refused to walk away beaten. She had a plan, and Alero was not going to see it coming. Alero tried to focus on work. She tried to get lost in the hum of engines, the clink of metal tools, the steady rhythm of bolts tightening under her hands. But her mind refused to cooperate. Every few minutes, it drifted back to one moment. Tiga saying, I choose you. Those words terrified her, because she wanted to believe them, wanted to feel worthy of them, wanted to accept them. But her heart had been bruised by years of judgment. And the scene with Vanessa had reopened wounds she thought she buried long ago. As she adjusted the clutch on a client's BMW, she sighed heavily. This is getting complicated, she muttered to herself. You talking to the cars now? Her supervisor teased from across the garage. Alero forced a smile. The cars listen better than people. He chuckled, but his expression turned thoughtful as he approached. You okay? You've been different, distracted. I'm fine, she lied. He handed her a bottle of cold water, and she took it gratefully. You know, he said, leaning against the workbench, sometimes good things come at the wrong time. Alero fiddled with the bottle cap. And sometimes they come when you're not ready. He nodded slowly. But if something keeps showing up in your life, Maybe it's meant to. She didn't respond, because she wasn't ready to name what she felt, not even to herself. Near closing time, the sun began to sink, painting the sky with shades of pink and golden orange. Alero was sweeping the floor when her supervisor called out, "Alero, someone's asking for you outside." She frowned. "At this hour?" He shrugged. "Go check." She wiped her hands on her apron and stepped outside. Her heart dropped to her stomach. Vanessa was waiting. This time, she wore oversized sunglasses, a designer coat draped over her shoulders, and lips painted a bold crimson. She looked like a storm disguised as a woman. Alero's pulse quickened. "Vanessa," she murmured cautiously. "Did you want something?" Vanessa removed her sunglasses slowly, revealing eyes cold with fury. "Yes," she said. "I wanted to talk to you." Alero fought to keep her voice steady. "I don't want trouble. Whatever you think happened." "Oh, I know exactly what happened," Vanessa interrupted. "I know what you're doing." Alero blinked, confused. "I'm not doing anything. Don't insult my intelligence," Vanessa snapped. "I've dealt with women like you before." Alero's brows furrowed. "Women like me?" "Yes," Vanessa said, voice dripping with disdain. "Women who appear innocent but know exactly how to manipulate. Women who pretend not to want attention while stealing it in plain sight." "I didn't steal anything," Alero said quietly. Vanessa stepped closer. "You stole him." "No," Alero said firmly. "Tiga made his own choices." "And you didn't encourage him?" Vanessa demanded. "You didn't enjoy him showing up here every day? You didn't like the way he looked at you?" Alero felt her cheeks heat up. Not from guilt, but from frustration. "I didn't ask him to come," she said. "I didn't plan any of this. I was just doing my job." Vanessa's laugh was sharp and cruel. "Your job? Your job is to stay in your lane. You don't belong in his world." Alero swallowed painfully. "You think the two of you make sense?" Vanessa continued. "You think a billionaire will parade around with a mechanic? Someone who can't even afford proper clothes? Someone who probably doesn't know which fork to use at a restaurant?" Alero clenched her fists. Vanessa's gaze raked over her again. "Look at you. You're built like a bodyguard. Not a woman." Those words hit Alero like physical blows. The same words she heard for years. The same wounds she thought had healed. The same shame she had buried in engines and sweat. Alero stepped back, breathing unevenly. "I'm not going to fight you," she whispered. "Oh, you will," Vanessa said with cold confidence. "Because I'm not done." Alero stiffened. Vanessa leaned in and whispered, "You may have caught his attention, but you will never keep it. Men like him always return to women like me." She stepped back, smiling a tight, victorious smile. "And when he does, you'll look back on this and realize you were just a distraction. A passing joke." Before Alero could respond, Vanessa turned sharply, walked to her car, and drove off. The silence she left behind was suffocating. Alero stood frozen in place, her chest tight, her eyes burning, her breath trembling. And for the first time in a long time, she felt small, invisible, unworthy. By the time Alero returned inside the garage, she could barely lift her head. Her supervisor noticed immediately. "What happened?" he asked gently. "Nothing," she muttered. But he didn't believe her. "Alero," he said, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Whatever it is, you can tell me." She shook her head. "I don't want to talk about it." He watched her for a moment, then nodded. "Okay, but remember, nobody defines you except you." Alero tried to hold on to that, tried to bury Vanessa's words deep inside. But they clung to her like oil on skin. "You don't belong in his world. You're built like a bodyguard, not a woman. You'll never keep him." Each sentence sliced into her insecurities. By closing time, Alero was exhausted, but not from work. From thinking, from doubting, from hurting. That evening, she walked home slowly, dragging her boots through the gravel like each step cost something. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She stopped walking. She didn't need to check the screen to know who it was. Tiga. For a moment, she considered ignoring it, putting her phone away, pretending she didn't care. But she cared. Deeply. She opened the message. "Tiga. Are you home safe? I've been thinking about you. Can we talk?" Alero stared at the words for a long time, then typed only 3. "Alero, not tonight." She hit send, turned off her phone, and kept walking, her heart aching, because she wanted to talk to him. But she wasn't ready. Not after what Vanessa said. Not after how small she felt. Not when she didn't know if she deserved someone like him. Tonight, she needed space. Space to breathe. Space to think. Space to understand what her heart was becoming. She didn't know that Tiga was already getting into his car. Already determined to come find her. Already planning to fight for her. She didn't know that Vanessa wasn't finished either. And the storm building around her life was only just beginning. Alero barely slept. She tossed on her thin mattress, staring at the shadows on her ceiling. The moving branches of the mango tree outside, the flicker of passing headlights, the soft glow of the street lamp near the compound gate. Her mind replayed everything Vanessa had said. People like him don't choose women like you. You're a distraction. You're not feminine enough. He'll come back to his world. Each sentence cut deep. Reopening wounds Alero thought she had long patched up with grease and resilience. By morning, her eyes were swollen, her heart sore, and her confidence cracked. She washed her face, tied her hair tightly, put on her work shirt, and forced herself to leave the house. The walk to the garage felt long, heavy, full of dread. She wished the world would stay quiet just a little longer. She wished engines would sleep. She wished she could hide inside her father's old workshop, where life had made sense. But the world didn't wait for her pain. Life moved on, and Alero moved with it. When she entered Autoplus, the workers sensed something was off. They greeted her cautiously, their voices softer than usual. Her supervisor watched her closely. "You didn't sleep," he guessed. Alero didn't deny it. "Do you want to take the morning off?" he asked. "No," she said quickly. "I need work. Work helps." He nodded and patted her shoulder. "Just shout if you need anything." She gave a tight nod, and threw herself into the engine of a Toyota Highlander as though she could escape her thoughts by tightening bolts. But even the smell of diesel and metal couldn't distract her today. Not completely, because she felt it again, that familiar hum. The soft thunder of an engine too luxurious for their workshop. Her hands froze, her heart stilled. She didn't have to look. She already knew. The Rolls-Royce glided into the garage like a black shadow touched by sunlight. Tiga stepped out. He looked tired, restless, worried, like he hadn't slept either. His eyes found hers immediately. Alero's chest tightened painfully. She looked away, but he walked straight to her. "Alero," he said softly. Her wrench trembled in her hand. "Why are you here?" "Because we need to talk." "No," she whispered, still staring at the engine. "We don't." He stepped closer. "Last night you said you couldn't talk. I respected that, but I can't keep pretending everything is fine." Alero's eyes burned again, but she kept her face hidden. "Tiga, please go." "I'm not going," he said firmly. That made her turn. Slowly, reluctantly. He looked so conflicted, so earnest, so human. She hated that it made her heart ache. "What do you want from me?" she said quietly. "You," he said. The single word floated between them like a fragile flame. Alero swallowed hard. "No, you don't." "Yes," he said, stepping closer. "I do." "No," she repeated, her voice sharp with hurt. "You want an escape. You want someone different. You want something refreshing because your relationship fell apart. You want—" "I want you," he interrupted, his voice roughening. "Not because you're different. Not because you're refreshing. Because you're you." She shook her head. "You don't understand." "Then help me," he begged. She didn't know if he realized how his voice softened when he said her name. "Alero, talk to me." She took a shaky breath. Vanessa came again. His whole body tensed. What did she do? "She didn't need to do anything," Alero whispered. "She told me the truth." "The truth?" he echoed. "What truth?" "That I don't belong in your world." Tiga's eyes widened with disbelief. "She's wrong." "No," Alero insisted, her voice cracking. "She's right." He stepped closer instinctively. "Alero." "I fix cars," she said. "You attend charity galas. I wear overalls. Your friends wear designer suits. I grew up in a village. You grew up in luxury. I don't know your world." "My world is just noise," he said. "You're the first real thing I've ever—" "Stop saying things like that," she snapped, pain in her voice. He stopped mid-sentence, startled. Alero wiped her eyes quickly. "You'll regret this. Maybe not today. Maybe not tomorrow. But someday you'll realize Vanessa was right. You'll want someone polished. Someone glamorous. Someone people won't laugh at." Tiga inhaled sharply. People laugh at you? She shrugged, trying to look indifferent. All the time. He clenched his fists. Then they're fools. She shook her head. They're just honest. Alero, listen. No, she whispered, backing away. You think you choose me, but you're choosing a fantasy. A version of me that makes you feel free. It won't last. Tiga stepped forward until he was right in front of her. Nothing loud. Nothing dramatic. Just a quiet, intense closeness. Alero, he said, voice low and steady. Do you trust me? Her breath hitched. She didn't answer. Not because she didn't want to, but because she did. And that terrified her. Tiga reached for her hand. Slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. But she didn't. Their fingers touched. And the moment their hands connected, something fragile inside Alero crumbled. You don't have to choose me, he said softly. Just let me choose you. A choice comes with consequences, she whispered. Then I'll face them, he replied. For how long? She asked, her voice trembling. A week? A month? Until your world pressures you to choose differently? Until you realize I don't fit the image beside you. I don't care about image. You should, she said. People like you need to. He closed his eyes, frustrated. And what if I don't want to be the person people want me to be? Then you need to figure that out, she said quietly, without dragging me into it. The air between them tightened. So that's what this is? He said. You're pushing me away because you're afraid. She looked at him, tears burning. Yes. He froze. Not because she admitted fear, but because she admitted truth. She was afraid. Afraid he'd change his mind. Afraid she'd fall too deeply. Afraid of the pain that waited if she trusted him. Alero, he whispered, his voice gentler than she'd ever heard it. You are the bravest person I've ever met. Her lip trembled. I don't feel brave. That's how I know you are. She couldn't respond. Her heart was screaming. Her mind was drowning. Her walls were cracking, and she wasn't ready for them to fall. She pulled her hand away, not violently, not angrily, just slowly, painfully, deliberately. Tiga's face fell. That doesn't mean I don't care, she said softly. It means I care too much. He swallowed hard. So what now? Alero inhaled shakily. I need time. I need space. He stood still, absorbing the blow like a man trying not to break. Alero, he whispered. I don't want to lose you. You're not losing me, she said. You're just waiting for me to catch up. Silence settled, heavy, hurting, honest. Finally, Tiga nodded. Take all the time you need. He turned slowly, walked to his car, opened the door. But before getting in, he looked back at her. His eyes filled with something raw and vulnerable. I'm not going anywhere, he said. Then he drove off, leaving Alero standing there, shaking. Not because she doubted him, but because for the first time in her life, someone was willing to wait. Not for her beauty, not for her image, not for her usefulness. For her, just her. Her tears finally fell. Quiet, warm, unstoppable. Because she had just said no. To the one thing her soul had been yearning for. Not to reject it, but to protect it. And she didn't know what the future held. But she knew one thing. Tiga Lawson wasn't done. And neither was destiny. Alero didn't see Tiga for 3 days. 3 long, heavy, confusing days. The first morning after their conversation, she woke with a hollow ache in her chest. A strange mixture of relief and regret. Relief that she had protected herself. Regret that she had pushed away the only person who made her feel truly seen. She went to work earlier than usual. She avoided her co-workers' questions. She kept her head down and focused on engines, bolts, and wires. But the day still felt wrong. The second morning, she woke up hoping, just a little, that the Rolls-Royce would appear at the garage. That Tiga would break his promise and show up anyway. That he'd insist they talk, insist she listen, insist she let herself be cared for. But he didn't come. And the absence was louder than any engine she worked on. The third morning, she stopped checking her phone every hour. She stopped expecting to see his car around the corner. She stopped pretending she didn't miss him. But missing him didn't solve anything. She told herself space was good, necessary, healing. But her heart didn't understand logic. On the 4th day, her supervisor approached her gently. You're quieter, he said. I'm just tired, Alero replied. He nodded, but his eyes held worry. Life feels heavier when you push people away, you know? Alero tensed. I didn't push anyone away. Her supervisor raised an eyebrow. Didn't you? She exhaled sharply. I needed space. Space isn't the same as running. I'm not running. He tilted his head. Then why does it feel like you're hiding? The words hit harder than she wanted them to. Because maybe, deep down, he was right. But before she could answer, a sleek, glossy black sedan pulled into the garage. Not a Rolls-Royce, not Vanessa's car, something new. The driver stepped out, tall and formally dressed in a charcoal suit. He looked like someone who didn't belong anywhere near mechanics. Good morning, he said politely. I'm looking for a mechanic named Alero. Alero froze. That's me, she said warily. Is something wrong? The man's expression tightened with concern. Mr. Lawson sent me. Alero's breath caught in her throat. Tiga? She whispered. Is he okay? The man nodded quickly. Yes, miss. Physically, he's fine. But he requested your help. Urgently. Her heart raced. What happened? She demanded. He'll explain, the man said. Please, come with me. Alero hesitated only for a moment before pulling off her gloves. I'm going, she told her supervisor. He nodded, a knowing light in his eyes. Be careful. The sedan drove through the city at a steady pace. Alero stared out the window, her thoughts chaotic. Why would Tiga send someone? Why didn't he call? Had something happened with Vanessa? Had something happened at work? Had something happened because of her? When the car finally stopped at Tiga's mansion, Alero's pulse quickened. She stepped out slowly, taking in the grand structure. Quiet, too quiet, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. The chauffeur guided her inside. Tiga? Alero called softly. Her voice echoed through the expansive living room. No response. She followed the driver down a hallway, then another, until they reached a smaller lounge room, one she had never seen before. The driver knocked gently and opened the door. She's here, sir. Alero stepped inside and froze. Tiga was sitting on a couch, head bent over his knees, elbows resting on them, hands clasped together. His suit jacket was off. His white shirt was wrinkled. His eyes looked exhausted. He looked up when she entered, and something inside her chest cracked. Tiga, she whispered. His voice was low, raw. I wasn't sure you'd come. I'm here, she said quietly. Are you okay? No, he said bluntly. Alero's heart clenched. She walked closer, but not too close. What happened? He took a long, shaky breath. My board of directors found out about us. Her breath stopped. What do you mean, found out? Vanessa, he said, his voice tight with frustration. She told them everything. She told them I was distracted, that I was jeopardizing the company, that my decisions were compromised. Alero's fists clenched instinctively. But that's not true, she said. They don't care, Tiga replied bitterly. They care about control. They care about image. Alero swallowed hard. So, what does that mean for you? He leaned back, staring at the ceiling. They're pressuring me to make certain decisions, to pull away from any influence they see as unprofessional. Alero felt a cold shiver run down her spine. And by influence, you mean me? Tiga's silence was the only answer she needed. Alero took a shaky breath. Tiga, I never wanted to cause you trouble. You didn't, he said sharply. They did. Vanessa did. Alero stared at him, pain pulling at her chest. Maybe Vanessa was right. Tiga's head snapped toward her. No. She said I'd get in the way, Alero whispered. She said I'd damage your life. Maybe she was right. She wasn't, he insisted. But Alero felt the truth like a weight in her bones. Tiga, she said softly. Look at you. Look at what's happening. Everything is falling apart because of me. No, he said again, louder this time. Everything is falling apart because people refuse to let me live my own life. But they can, she said gently. If I step away. Tiga stood abruptly. Don't say that. Alero backed up a step. It's true. It's not, he growled, voice breaking. Alero, don't take yourself away from me. Her breath trembled. If staying ruins you, I won't be part of that. It doesn't ruin me, he shouted, then lowered his voice instantly. Loving someone doesn't ruin a person. She froze. Tiga realized what he had just said at the same time she did. His eyes widened. Her breath caught. Silence filled the room. I didn't mean to say it like that, he said softly. Not here. Not when we're hurting. But it's the truth. Alero's eyes stung. Tiga, I care about you, he whispered. Too much. More than I should. But I'm done hiding that. Alero felt her knees weaken. She wanted to run to him. She wanted to hold him. She wanted to forget the world outside this room. But she couldn't. Tiga, she whispered painfully. You're asking me to fight a battle I don't know how to win. Then let me fight it, he said. But I don't want to be the reason you lose, she whispered. He stepped closer, desperation in his voice. You're the reason I feel alive. Alero's tears finally fell, but she shook her head. You need to fix things with your company, with your board, with your life. And you can't do that while trying to defend, whatever this is. We need space. I don't want space, he said, aching. I do, she whispered. He flinched, and Alero's chest shattered. Because she didn't want space. She wanted him, but wanting him wasn't enough. Without another word, she stepped back toward the door. Alero, he pleaded. Don't walk away. She paused, her voice cracking. Just fix things, Tiga. And when you do, you'll know if you still want me in your life. He stared at her. Broken, silent, helpless. She walked out, closed the door gently behind her. And for the second time in her life, she wished her heart didn't feel so much. Alero didn't return to the mansion. She didn't call. She didn't text. She didn't even glance at her phone more than once or twice a day, afraid of what she might see, or what she might not see. She kept her head down at work, fixing cars with a fury she'd never felt before. Tools clattered louder. Engines revved harsher. She worked faster than everyone. So fast her coworkers noticed something was wrong. But no one asked. Even her supervisor didn't push. He simply watched her with worried eyes, offering her water and support without questions. The days blurred together, each one heavier than the last. By the end of the week, Alero told herself that she was moving on, that she was strong enough to let go, strong enough to focus on her life, strong enough to forget him. But her heart refused to listen. Every night, she lay awake staring at her father's wrench beside her pillow. She wondered if she made a mistake. She wondered if she walked away too quickly. She wondered if Tiga was okay. She wondered if he still thought about her. And in the quiet moments, she whispered into the dark, Papa, what do I do? But the shadows didn't answer. While Alero struggled silently, Tiga fought battles in broad daylight. The board of directors called emergency meetings, demanding explanations, threatening control over his companies, accusing him of being emotionally compromised. Vanessa wasn't done either. She leaked rumors to gossip blogs about a mysterious female mechanic distracting the billionaire. She hinted at unprofessional behavior. She painted their breakup as a scandal. She wanted revenge, and she wanted it deeply. Tiga tried to defend himself, tried to keep the board from stripping him of authority, tried to stop Vanessa's stories from spreading. But every decision he made felt harder without Alero's grounding presence. His office felt cold. His mansion felt empty. His heart felt heavier than it ever had. His personal assistant noticed the change. Sir, he said carefully, you haven't eaten today. I'm fine, Tiga replied. You haven't slept either. Just bring me the next meeting file. The assistant hesitated, then asked the question no one else dared. Should I call Miss Alero? Tiga didn't look up. No, he whispered, voice thick. Not until she's ready. One evening, Tiga returned to his mansion drained, only to find Vanessa sitting in his living room. Tiga, she said softly. He stiffened. Why are you here? She stood gracefully. I came to warn you. He raised an eyebrow. Warn me? Yes. Her voice was steady. Walk away from the mechanic. Walk away before she ruins your career permanently. Tiga's jaw clenched. We're not discussing Alero. You should, she said sharply. Because the board has eyes on her. They want you to cut all ties with her. And if I don't? He asked coldly. They'll remove you, Vanessa said quietly. They'll take your companies. Tiga inhaled deeply. Then let them. Vanessa's eyes widened. Are you insane? No, he said. I'm done living by their expectations. Vanessa stared at him, speechless for the first time. You're throwing everything away for a mechanic? She whispered. Tiga didn't answer, and that silence told her everything she needed to know. You'll regret this, she warned. Maybe I will, he replied. But regretting honesty is better than living a lie. Vanessa exhaled sharply, collected her purse, and left. That was the moment Tiga made his decision. He didn't care about the board. He didn't care about his reputation. He didn't care about losing power. He cared about Alero, and he was going to prove it. The next morning at Autoplus, Alero worked on a customer's Camry when she heard a sudden hush fall over the entire shop. Tools stopped clattering. Engines stopped humming. Voices fell silent. A strange stillness filled the air. Alero frowned. "What's going on?" Her supervisor rushed toward her, eyes wide. "Alero, you should come outside. Now." She wiped her hands and walked out front. And froze. A black Rolls-Royce Phantom was parked at the entrance. But it wasn't alone. There were cameras. A full camera crew. Reporters holding microphones. People whispering loudly. And in the center of everything, Tiga Lawson, dressed in a simple black shirt and trousers, hair slightly messy, eyes locked on her like she was the only person in the world. Alero's heart crashed into her ribs. "Tiga," she whispered. The crowd parted as he walked toward her. Her coworkers gasped. Some customers pulled out their phones. Even her supervisor muttered, "Oh my God!" Alero took a step back. "What are you doing?" "What I should have done a long time ago," he said. The reporters raised microphones. "Tiga Lawson, is it true you've been romantically involved with a mechanic? Are you leaving your position as CEO? Is this woman the reason for the board dispute?" Alero's eyes widened in horror. "Tiga, stop. You're making this worse." But he smiled gently. "No, I'm making it truthful." He took another step and raised his voice for everyone to hear. "Yes," he said confidently. "This is Alero. She is a mechanic. She is everything you see, and everything you don't." Alero stared at him, stunned. "And I'm not ashamed of that," he continued. "I'm proud of it." The crowd burst with murmurs. He turned to Alero, softer now, so soft it was almost a whisper. "I didn't want to drag you into the chaos, but I also won't hide you." "Tiga," she breathed, voice trembling. "You wanted space," he said gently. "I gave you that, but I won't stand back and let people define you by what you're not." A tear rolled down Alero's cheek. "You think you're not enough for my world," Tiga continued. "But the truth is, I'm the one who wasn't enough for yours." Alero shook her head, tears flowing. "Don't say that." "I will," he said, "because your strength puts mine to shame. And I refuse to lose the only person who ever made me feel like I could be myself." A sob escaped her lips. "And if the board wants to remove me," he added, "let them. I'm done living for anyone but myself." The crowd erupted with shocked reactions. Alero covered her mouth with her hand. "Tiga," she whispered through tears, "you can't throw everything away." "I'm not," he said softly. "I'm choosing something worth keeping." He reached out his hand, all cameras watching, all eyes locked on them. "Alero," he whispered, "I choose you, not your strength, not your talent, not your story. You." Her heart gave up fighting. She stepped forward, took his hand. The crowd gasped, but she didn't care. For the first time in her life, she let herself be chosen. Tiga pulled her into his arms gently, not minding the grease stains on her shirt or the dirt on her hands. She buried her face in his shoulder and cried, quiet, trembling, freeing tears. He held her tighter, whispered softly into her hair, "You don't have to fight alone anymore." Alero pulled back just enough to look into his eyes. "This won't be easy," she whispered. "I don't want easy," he said. "I want real." She exhaled shakily. "So do I." Their foreheads touched, and under the sunlight, surrounded by cameras and strangers, they shared a moment that belonged only to them. A moment Vanessa couldn't ruin. A moment the board couldn't control. A moment the world couldn't steal. A moment where a billionaire and a mechanic chose each other. Against all odds. Against expectations. Against fear. And for the first time, Alero believed something she never dared believe before. She was enough. More than enough. And destiny wasn't finished with them yet. Alero never imagined she would be the kind of woman who wore diamond rings. Not because she didn't deserve them, but because she'd spent so long believing life wouldn't give her anything soft, delicate, or beautiful. But on a warm golden evening, standing in front of the new garage she had designed from scratch, she found herself staring at a ring sparkling in the palm of a man who once broke down on the roadside and changed both their destinies. Tiga Lawson was on one knee, her breath caught. "Marry me, Alero," he said, his voice shaking with emotion. Not because of who I am, not because of what I have, but because every moment since the day you touched my engine, you've touched my life in ways I can never repay. Marry me because you're the only future that makes sense." Alero blinked hard, tears rising immediately. The wind blew gently through her braids, carrying the scent of oil, rubber, and warm metal, the scent of her father's world, the world she never abandoned. "Tiga," she whispered, her heart thundering. "Are you sure? My life is loud, messy, greasy, noisy. I'm not." "You," he interrupted, "are exactly who I want." The ring glistened between them. Alero let out a soft, shaky laugh full of disbelief and overflowing joy. "Yes," she whispered, then louder, with the full strength of her soul. "Yes." Tiga slipped the ring onto her finger, pulled her into his arms, and kissed her with the kind of certainty that rebuilt entire worlds. That night, the city below seemed to light up in celebration. Their engagement spread across the city like wildfire. A billionaire marrying a mechanic? A CEO choosing a woman of strength over society's expectations? A love story more powerful than wealth? The world had questions, but the wedding answered all of them. It took place under a sweeping glass dome decorated with white lilies, hanging lights, and touches of silver. Tiga wore a tailored suit that seemed sculpted onto him. Alero walked down the aisle in a gown that celebrated her strength rather than hiding it. Sleeveless, elegant, fitted at the waist, the fabric flowing around her like liquid moonlight. She took everyone's breath away. Influential elites rubbed shoulders with mechanics, welders, drivers, and people from Alero's village who had traveled miles to watch the girl who once fixed motorcycles become a bride. When Tiga saw her walking toward him, he didn't hold back the tears. When Alero reached him, she whispered, "Are you crying?" "Absolutely," he said. "You would cry too if you were marrying you." The guests burst into laughter and applause. Their vows were simple but powerful. Alero promised courage. Tiga promised devotion. Together, they promised possibility. When they kissed, cameras flashed, fireworks shot into the sky, and people swore they felt the earth shift. It was the wedding of the year. No, of the decade. The city talked about it for months. Marriage didn't slow them down, it fueled them. Tiga rebuilt his company. He cut off the board members who manipulated him, redesigned the company's image, created new ethical policies, reclaimed every piece of power he lost. Within a year, he became one of the most respected CEOs in the region, stronger, wiser, more grounded. People said the transformation began the moment he chose Alero. And he didn't deny it. Alero built her dream. Her garage opened with a crowd so large they blocked the entire street. Alero Auto Haven, driven by skill, powered by heart. Every wall carried her father's memory. Every corner carried her sweat, her strength, her story. Tiga helped her get the land. Alero built everything else with her own hands. Soon, luxury cars, sports cars, and even classic vehicles came to her for repair. She hired young mechanics who needed second chances, girls who were mocked for being strong, boys who were overlooked, dreamers who needed guidance. Her garage became a sanctuary, a home, the beating heart of her legacy. While Alero and Tiga rose like dawn breaking over the city, Vanessa's presence dimmed. Her attempts to stir drama lost power. Her gossip fizzled. Her society friends quietly stepped away. Her influence evaporated. People simply stopped listening. In a world that had moved forward, she remained stuck in bitterness. Eventually, she relocated abroad, seeking a fresh start far from the life she once dominated. Her downfall wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, a slow fading of relevance, a soft goodbye from a world that no longer feared her shadows. And Alero, she never celebrated Vanessa's fall. She didn't need to. Her life was proof enough that destiny favors growth, not revenge. On a cool evening, months after their wedding, Alero stood on the balcony of their home, a beautiful blend of modern architecture and rustic warmth. Tiga joined her, wrapping his arms around her waist from behind. "What are you thinking about?" he murmured. She leaned into him. "Everything we've survived. And everything ahead of us," he added. She smiled faintly. "You think the world will ever get used to us?" "Maybe," he said. "But I don't care if they don't." She turned, facing him fully. His eyes held the same softness he had the day he knelt before her. "Tiga," she whispered, "thank you for choosing me." He shook his head gently. "I didn't choose you, Alero. I recognized you. You were always mine." Her heart clenched with joy. She pressed her forehead to his. And I was always yours. They stood there for a long time, watching city lights flicker like stars scattered at their feet. Two worlds once separated by status, fear, and expectation, now united by choice, courage, and love. Alero rested her head on his chest and whispered into the evening air. We made it. And the wind carried back the truth. Yes, you did. Forever. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the story, please subscribe to this channel and tell us where you are watching from. Have a wonderful day.